glad to be here. Thank you so much. I'm Lara Bonnell. I started the Bonnell Foundation in 2010, and both of my daughters have cystic fibrosis. Molly is 27 and Emily is 24. Molly is actually living in London, England, going to school there. Well, she actually graduated, got her master's there, and has experienced the health system in the United Kingdom. And Emily is here in a suburb of Detroit, Michigan, where I am as well. There they are, if you can see them. I don't know if you can see them, but Emily has the green shirt on and Molly has the pink shirt on. That was a couple of years ago, but they're doing really well. We've always empowered them to take control of their cystic fibrosis and challenge the doctors, challenge the nurses, just really take charge of their lives, because it is so very important that they ask questions and that they know exactly how to take care of themselves. Emily just recently had a pretty bad exacerbation. She still has her PICC line in. So it's just an ongoing thing, as all of you know, that it is very important that they both take care of their health. We were separated from Molly because of the pandemic. We just got to see her in July. So it is really important to start them as young as kindergarten to empower them on, hey, you can talk about your enzymes, you can talk about your disease, whether it's a decision whether you want people to know or not. But really, I think that that's helped them to where they are today, taking small steps when they were younger. When they were born, I knew right away that I wanted to start my own foundation. I was a news reporter here in Detroit, at an all news station. And I felt like I was given the voice to get the word out about cystic fibrosis, but I knew I also wanted to help families. So I was a reporter for 25 years and an anchor here in Detroit. And then 11 years ago, I started the foundation. And 3 years ago, I decided to just do the foundation full time. And it is absolutely my happy place. It's also my therapy. I talk to parents all the time. We can relate, we help each other. I talk to dads and moms and do a lot of advocacy as well. So it's been wonderful to meet people from across the country, to meet Brian, to meet other people from other foundations across the country. It's been fantastic. So I'll tell you a little bit about my journey. So you know this guy, Dr. Francis Collins. My story was, I've been a reporter forever, and I decided to take 1 year off in 1989 and do some PR for the United Way in Ann Arbor. So I was doing work there, and that just happened to be the year that they discovered the gene that causes CF. Dr. Collins, of course, was part of that group. And I wasn't married yet. I didn't know the role that cystic fibrosis was going to have in my life. I was dating my now husband, but like I said, we weren't married. And then there was like a local news conference, and I was there for that. So it was just crazy how I was really born to be in this role my entire life. I had met somebody with cystic fibrosis. We were doing this campaign ad, and I remember Jeff is the first person I met. He was 24 years old, and I still didn't know anything about cystic fibrosis. I just kind of knew the name. So having met Dr. Collins then, and then meeting him throughout the years again and again and again, as recently as in July, seeing him again, it was just fantastic. He's our hero, right? He has helped us all kind of watch the progression of how things have gone in the world of cystic fibrosis. So that has been wonderful to have a connection to him and of course, everyone else in the CF community. That's kind of where I got my start. The local radio and TV stations here still play public service announcements about the foundation. I just think advocacy is really one of the most important things we can do to raise awareness and to help everyone in our community. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we do. The picture is from our last fundraiser, which was in September. Everybody was masked. No one got COVID. Everybody, of course, understood it was in Detroit on Belle Isle, and it was a beautiful night. It was like outside. You can't tell, but the doors are open there. So it was a really wonderful night. I think the CF community, we did really well in the pandemic, even though it was very hard. I tell everyone, if that administration, when the pandemic started, had asked CF parents and done public service announcements with us, it would have been such a different outcome. We really would have educated the country and the world about how to deal with a pandemic as far as masking and 6 feet apart and clinical trials. It's a shame that even today, even this administration, there's still so much they can learn from the cystic fibrosis community as far as all of this. So it's too bad we didn't have a higher profile during this pandemic, because I think although we've helped on the local levels, I think we really could have helped nationwide ease everyone's minds and talk people through this very, very hard time. So what our foundation does is we advocate, and one of the things we're working on right now in Michigan is the Rare Disease Advisory Council. It's passed in, I think, about 21 states right now, and that's really to give the rare disease community, which includes cystic fibrosis, of course, a voice. So it's to talk about things like step therapy and affordability boards, and ICER, which is the Institute for Clinical and Economic Review, which discriminates against people with rare diseases and really hurts us. So we do as much advocacy as we can. And we also give financial assistance to cystic fibrosis families. So if you have co-pays that aren't covered, we give up to $500 for each copay that you have, up to twice a year. And then we have lung transplant grants, and that covers if you're paying rent or something in another state. Everyone knows what's entailed with that, but it also pays for gas and other things that are related to a lung transplant. And then our education scholarships are for anybody who has cystic fibrosis and wants to go to a trade school, wants to go to a university or a community college, and you apply for a grant. And that just closed, so we're excited to see. We're just reading through essays now, and then we award people in August, and they'll have that for the start of school. But we've been doing that program for a long time. It's very successful, and we started doing webinars about that, and it's good to get a lot of feedback and questions. The other thing that we're doing, like you're doing right now, is we do a lot of educational webinars. We have one coming up with Bonnell Trivedi, who wrote Breath from Salt. It's a book about the history of the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation and how Bob Bell and everybody, all these parents, played a role in starting the CF Foundation. So it's wonderful because you see how Joe and Kathy O'Donnell and all of these parents came together and said, hey, we're experiencing the same thing and we need research to help us find a cure for this disease. So her book is a wonderful and enlightening, beautiful summary of everything that happened to start the CF Foundation. And it also shows where we've come as far as research and triple combination drugs and all of that. So it was great. I did a podcast with her. It was great to meet her and to read her book. She's just so excited and full of energy, and she learned a lot too. So she'll have a lot to share. And then we're also talking with another mom, about nutrition in people with CF, because as you may or may not know, in 1938, when Dr. Dorothy Anderson kind of figured out that there was cystic fibrosis, they were starting people with CF on a low-fat diet because they felt, well, if you're having greasy poops and all this trouble with your digestive system, it'll be easier on your system if you start with a low-fat diet. And of course, people with cystic fibrosis were so thin, they were getting so ill, and it wasn't at all helping. So then they switched it to, oh, we should put you on a high-fat diet. And then in the beginning, the enzymes weren't coded, so they weren't going to where they needed to go in the digestive system. And so that wasn't helping either, because people were still having horrific digestive pain. So now that the enzymes are coded and they get to where they need to be so they can digest the food, people with cystic fibrosis are doing a lot better. So it was something that I learned with my girls. They didn't need all this high-fat food. It's just not advice, because you need to talk to your doctor and get all of your advice from your doctor. But as moms, we started talking about this high-fat diet wasn't benefiting our kids. So my girls are vegetarians, and it's just a whole kind of different look about how to eat when you have cystic fibrosis. So that's what we're talking about in that webinar. And then in CF Awareness Month, we're making it official, because we have to do it every year, and in every state make it officially CF Awareness Month. And our legislators are great. They're like, every year we're going to do this. So it is fun that we go to Capitol, to our Capitol in Lansing, and they make it official. And we actually have a legislator, Representative Mueller, whose sister has cystic fibrosis, so it's close to his heart as well. And Representative Jim Ellison has been doing this for us year after year after year. So we appreciate that. We're also showcasing moms in the month of May, and we'll do dads in the month of June, but it's kind of our pearls of wisdom. Like, what do you think as a CF mom? What advice do you have to give to other CF moms? It's something, when I talk to CF moms, we're always talking about things like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? When did you start them on, this? Are you having problems? It's just so many things. We felt like parents are so busy. You have treatments, then you're trying to keep your kids normal, going to all their athletics, or you're trying to keep them in school, and you don't always have time to call up a mom. So we're just putting the advice on our website, and this way moms will be able to see it and kind of click on it. So we're doing a little bit of that, and I think that'll be real fun too, because CF moms, we could talk forever. So we like giving advice and getting advice as well. And then the other thing that we do a lot of, and it's my most favorite thing because it's very close to what I've done my entire life in radio and television, but our podcasts. We highlight so many things. We have highlighted how difficult it is for people in the Middle East. I specifically featured some CF patients in Egypt who they just didn't even believe that people in Egypt had cystic fibrosis, and so they weren't being diagnosed. And now about 1,000 people have been diagnosed. And Dr. Samia Nasser with the University of Michigan, her native country is Egypt, and she goes there every year and is testing more and more people with CF, and is trying to really raise awareness about cystic fibrosis there. It's a very sad situation. They can't get enzymes. I've talked to a dad who has twins with CF, and they only get enzymes every other day because he has to get enzymes from Saudi Arabia, and they're expensive. They have nothing covered by insurance. The other thing we've also talked to is the National Organization of African Americans with Cystic Fibrosis. They're also underdiagnosed. Many of you probably know Terry Wright. I've talked to him about being misdiagnosed until he was 54 years old. It's unbelievable that it's happening today, but I guess not unbelievable. The other thing I've also found out is that in talking with Dr. Ryan Thomas of Michigan State University, even though we have newborn screening, there are so many groups that are not going to get diagnosed with cystic fibrosis because the newborn screening in Michigan has 60 panels that will check to see if you have cystic fibrosis. They're the most popular mutations. So we have 2,000 now. So if you're Hispanic, you're probably not going to get diagnosed correctly. Maybe all the rare genes are going to be misdiagnosed. So you're going to think, well, I don't know. The newborn screening said my child doesn't have CF, so it can't be that. And then that could just add years in trying to figure out what's going on. So we really have to work on that, not only in Michigan, on making sure that every mutation is covered, but across the country. And so that's part of the advocacy that we're working on. There is so much that needs to be done. I think for me, one of the biggest things is connecting with other parents and talking about things, that we feel that we need. And I think a lot of it is support. I know we can all relate to this. As caregivers, having just gone through weeks of having my daughter in the hospital, it is mentally and emotionally exhausting. So a lot of the focus is on our kids. They're in the hospital, they need us. They're going through the physical and mental trauma, but it's important to remember that the parents are also going through that. I mean, I'm exhausted. This one knocked me out again. And we've been doing this for 27 years because our oldest is 27. So it's just a reminder, we really need to take care of ourselves. We really need to have good therapists for our children and for ourselves. Something you need to keep reevaluating. I've had good therapists. I've had some bad ones. You got to leave the bad ones and just move on. Because that's a complete waste of time. So if it doesn't feel right, that's not the right person for you. So that is pretty much what our foundation does. We have a lot of fundraisers. We want people to get involved.